This video is from the Human Systems 1 section, and it's on respiration or gas exchange. First on our diagrams page, we're going to look at the organs involved in the organ system of respiration. Starting at the top, number 1 is pointing to the nasal cavity. The nasal cavity and the oral cavity, or the cavity where the mouth is where air can enter into the body. Next, air passes through a four-way area called the pharynx. This pharynx has access to the epiglottis, the trachea, the nasal cavity, and the oral cavity. So there has to be a specific part of it to protect food from going down the trachea, and that flap of tissue is called the epiglottis. As we continue down through the respiration organs, we go down through the trachea. The trachea has to be very solid. Because we do not want it to collapse, so it has cartilage rings surrounding it. Air passes over top of our voice box or larynx, and it vibrates our vocal cords, and that's how sound is made. The trachea is also covered in mucus secretions, and these mucus secretions help trap debris and other things inhaled. It's also lined with cilia, and these are sweeping hair-like things that the cells are lined with that help sweep out debris. And when you cough something up, that is from the mucus and cilia in your trachea, trying to protect your lungs. As we continue down the path where air can flow, the trachea branches off into bronchi. So number 9 is pointing to a bronchus, that is singular. And number 5 is also pointing to a bronchus. To tell the difference from these, we need to know what side of the body they're on. Remember, when we look at an image in a textbook, we need to know that the right and left-hand side are opposite to our own, as if we're looking at a cadaver. So this side is the right side, and this side is the left side. So this is the left bronchus, and here is the right bronchus. The bronchi branch into smaller branches, and those are called bronchioles. Smaller structure, longer name. And that continues into the final area where gas exchange occurs. They look like sacks of grapes, and they're called the alveoli. These sacs have a membrane that is not sticky. It's got a lipid structure on it to prevent it from sticking together, and it is only one cell thick. Alveoli is plural, and alveolus is singular. Underneath the lungs is a muscle that separates the abdomen and the thoracic cavity, and that muscle aids in breathing, and it's called the diaphragm. If we zoom in to look at the alveoli, we have an example here. This is an alveoli sac, an alveolar sac, and its primary responsibility is gas exchange. So there were two gases specifically we're referring to, carbon dioxide and oxygen. The bronchioles end in alveoli, so oxygen would be coming into the bronchiole, into the alveolar sac. Oxygen comes from what we breathe in. The air we breathe in is higher in concentration in oxygen than the air we breathe out, which is higher in concentration of carbon dioxide. What is surrounding this alveolar sac is a blood supply. This blood supply is called pulmonary because it refers to the lungs. Our pulmonary blood supply returns and takes blood away from the heart so that blood can be oxygenated and then recirculated in the body. So blood comes in to this circulatory capillary network from the arterioles. The pulmonary arterioles are coming from the heart, and a capillary network surrounds the alveolar sacs, and so gas exchange can take place, and then blood leaves out through the pulmonary venules. And it is high in oxygen now, so it's oxygenated blood. As we have more carbon dioxide in the blood, that is what specifically is increasing our rate of breathing. This communicates that we need to inhale and exhale more. The part of our brain that is receiving that information is the medulla or the brainstem. And if carbon dioxide increases, that means that the medulla sends a message to the diaphragm to increase our breathing rate. Once carbon dioxide levels return to normal, then our breathing rate goes back to normal, and that is a feedback loop. Speaking of breathing, let's look at breathing movements. Breathing movements have everything to do with how the muscles contract. As muscles contract or relax, it changes the pressure inside the thoracic cavity, and that causes air to come in or out. On the left-hand side, or diagram B, this is a diagram of an inhalation. When someone inhales, air goes down their trachea and into their lungs, and that's what this is an image of. What we want to point out is the muscles. So as someone inhales, what happens is the muscles between their ribs, called the intercostal muscles, they contract. You can try it if you breathe in a lot. You can see that you have to use muscles. And what this does is it expands the chest cavity. Helping it expand is at the bottom, the diaphragm contracts. And that means that it flattens out. And so that makes even more space in the chest cavity, so it gets pulled out and down. What this does is it decreases the pressure in the lungs, the air pressure. So now because the air pressure in the lungs is less than the air pressure in the environment, air rushes in without us having to suck it there. That is an inhalation, contraction. To exhale is the other diagram, and the opposite occurs as air comes out. The intercostal muscles relax. And the diaphragm does the same. Because the diaphragm is relaxed and the intercostal muscles are relaxed, that means that the air pressure in the lungs increases from where it was before. Because the pressure is higher inside the lungs than outside in the environment, then air rushes out because of a pressure gradient. So when we inhale, muscles contract. When we exhale, muscles relax. And that is what we need to know for the respiratory system or gas exchange in the Human Systems 1 unit.